Hello friends, and a warm welcome to the Slow Living Collective. This is a podcast about slowing down, living seasonally and embracing an intentional life. So introductions. I'm Amy. I'm a 30-something mum of two, homemaker, home educator and allotment gardener. And these podcasts are love notes from me, sharing the things that I sometimes need to hear myself as well. In these episodes, I'm going to delve into what it means to walk a different path, to stepping outside societal norms and embracing all the beauty that it provides. From educating our children outside of the school system, living in a small home by choice, surrounding ourselves with a life of intention instead of living a life by default. I welcome you to come on this journey with me and open your mind to maybe a different way of living. I hope you find what you're looking for within the words of these podcasts, and I hope they speak to you in your own unique way. Today I want to share with you something exciting, a little bit nerve-wracking, and if you haven't guessed from the title of this podcast, I want to share my story about being in a multi-level marketing company. Now, I want to, before we go ahead and dive in, first thing I want to say is that I am just using this conversation I actually shared in a video. And so if there are bits where I'm saying like you can see here, it's because there was something visible on the screen. But I'm going to link all of the sources so you can see them as well if you want to delve into that. I'm also going to link the blog post that this goes with, and then that way you'll be able to see everything that's sort of related to this subject. Another thing I wanted to talk about before we dive in is that this is my own personal experience, and this does not reflect the experience of others. Although others may come forward, this is my own personal experience, my personal views, and does not align with the company or anything like that. This is also used for fair use in the terms of sharing it for educational purposes. You can see it all in the disclaimer in the notes below on whichever podcast channel you are listening on. You can also see the disclaimer in the link on that leads to my blog. So with that said, let's dive into this long-winded story. Today I want to talk about my own experiences within a multi-level marketing company, maybe look a little back in hindsight about how some of the more problematic parts of it sort of played out, and also talk about the reasons that led me to leaving and that also led me onto the anti-MLM community as well. Everything in this video, like I put in my disclaimer, is my experience only and is not representative of anybody in multi-level marketing, in the company that I worked for, in the team that I was on, or anything like that. These are just my experiences, thoughts and opinions. So before we start, I was part of It Works Global. I joined in 2015 and I was with the company for 4 years. So I feel like I have a fairly good idea on what the culture was like while I was there. It started by me following somebody on social media. Now, I don't know whether she followed me or I followed her. I want to say, knowing what I know about the team culture and the way that training was, that she probably followed me because it's all about growing a bigger network, constantly adding people to your network so that you can eventually sell to them or recruit them. But in all honesty, I don't know whether she followed me or I followed her first. It doesn't really matter. I followed this girl on social media and she was sharing about her business. She was sharing that she worked a 9-to-5 job, but she also had this side job that she was doing that was making her money, and it was going to enable her to retire from her 9-to-5, and it was doing all these great things for her in her life, and it was going to do a bunch of great stuff in the future as well. Now, I was at a time in my life where I was probably very susceptible to the messaging there, because I was in a job where I was quite disillusioned by it. I didn't love it. I'd been in it for a while, and I'd ummed and ahed about moving on, and I hadn't, because I was also studying for my master's degree, and my master's degree was quite full on. I was a mature student. I still had to work, you know, I still had life stuff to pay for. I couldn't just quit and study full time, as nice as that would have been. Tuition is pretty hefty when you're doing a master's degree, and you know, things like books and materials and stuff are not cheap either. So I was working my day job, I was also doing my master's degree, and my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, he lived 2.5 hours away, and so we also had a lot of commuting back and forth to see each other, which was obviously a time commitment, but also a financial commitment as well, because, you know, that's not cheap. And so, you know, all of these things sort of, I guess, made me more susceptible to the messaging of earning an extra income. But it still took me a little while to join. I actually reached out to who eventually became my enroller in, I don't know, it was like late 2014. And she responded to me saying, email me and I will get back to you. And when I went to email her, it bounced back and I never did anything more about it. It would have been better if that's where the story had ended, but it didn't. And so then in early 2015, I actually joined in early February. I then reached out to her again on social media, and I was like, you look like you're having so much fun with what you're doing. It looks like you're always having such a great time. Of course, I now know that that's the messaging that they portray, selling a lifestyle and a dream that, you know, doesn't really exist for more than 99% of people, and that's just sort of part of how they lure people into the business opportunity. So this time we had a discussion about the business, and I was very open to the idea. Decided that I would do a little bit of research, and so I went to Google and I typed in reasons not to join Networks, and now at the time nothing really came out. Now I can see here that this was 2014, so this was before I joined, but a lot of these things are very much more recent about reasons not to join. But at the time, like you can see here, I mean, there's this one that, I don't know if that's very pro or not, but you know, there's lots here that you can look into now. I'm curious about these. There wasn't really much out there, so I had sort of done this sort of little bit of research, couldn't really find a reason not to join. I spoke to my boyfriend at the time, and he was supportive. You know, he trusted me to have done enough research on it, and obviously we weren't financially tied up together at that point. And then I also spoke to my mum about it, and she said it sounded fine. Something that I actually said to my mum at the time, which I think is a problem in many multi-level marketing companies, and that is I was aware that the company was a faith-based company. They had Christian values, they were a sort of Christian leadership, and they almost used that. I now know that it's within multi-level marketing, it's called faith manipulation. It's using religion and God and or whoever you believe in to almost manipulate people into staying, joining, being there longer than necessary. You know, faith manipulation is used in so many ways to coerce people into doing things that maybe they wouldn't ordinarily. But in my experience, I was sort of more confident in the company because, you know, they were a religious-based company, they're faith-based. I felt like, you know, these people would have, you know, religious values, and therefore, you know, they would be not going to screw me over, I guess, because that's not very Christian. And so I almost took that as a reason to feel a little bit more comfortable about joining that. There was no way these people were going to screw me over because they were Christians, and Christians don't do that. Yeah. There you go. And when I finally decided to join, I was like, oh my God, how am I going to afford it? It was about £80 when I joined. But that was like converted off the dollar amount, and I've actually looked this here. So when I joined, it was around £80 when it was converted, and then for the most part while I was there it was £99, but now I can see that it's either 142 or 130, and I don't see that you can choose anything else. So that has gone up in price. You do get some more stuff with these. Actually, no, you don't, because I'm just looking here. So in my business builder kit, I got 4 reps, and look, you only get 3 here. Anyway, it looks like it's a lot more money than it was to join. So I don't even know how they managed to get people to join now. I actually put mine on a credit card. I paid it straight off, but there is this sort of, the company sort of alludes to helping you become debt free, but there are a lot of ways to overcome the objection of I don't have the money. A mild encouragement to put it on a credit card. There was a period of time where you could qualify for PayPal credit and pay it in like 4 installments. You know, a lot of people can't afford it, and those are the people really that are targeted as well, the people that can't afford any of this sort of stuff. You know, they're looking to make an extra income. They certainly don't have money to just throw away on a hope, which is ultimately what it is. Anyway, I was able to find the money that I needed, and I was signed up and quickly added to a Facebook team page, and there was a massive outpouring of excitement when I was sort of introduced on the team page, and this was always the case. Somebody would enroll somebody, they would go onto the team page and they would give them this big welcome, you know, please welcome so and so, they've just started, they're gonna, you know, they are from wherever, and they're gonna, you know, completely rock this business and run to the top with us, and, you know, be able to stay home with their babies or something like that. And then the comments would just quickly come rolling in like, oh my God, I'm so excited for you, welcome, welcome. You know, people telling you that I can't wait to see your success and that you're going to do amazing things. I mean, these are people that have known you for like 3 seconds. They know absolutely nothing about you. But they are love bombing you. And they don't know that they're doing it either. It's just the way that it's always been done. It's conditioned. It happened to them. They do it to the next person, and then the next person joins, and then they start doing it when new people join, and it's just compounded all the time. But it is love bombing, which is a known cult-like tactic. This outpouring of love, you know, encourages people to sort of sink sort of deeper into this group, I guess. So there was an outpouring of excitement, and it made me feel like, wow, oh my gosh, like maybe I've found the thing I've been looking for. And I very quickly was going away for like 2 weeks. I was going on a Caribbean cruise for my 30th birthday, and so I very quickly was sort of then out of the loop because I was going to go away and enjoy my holiday, which maybe if I'd have been in the company longer, because it was like 3 days, it would have been encouraged that I actually work through that and use it as sort of like fodder for, you know, recruiting people into my business, implying that I was on this cruise because of the company I worked for, and you know, that wouldn't have been true. But you know, there is a lot of implication, a lot of fake it till you make it. Thankfully I hadn't been in the company that long, so I didn't really know any of that sort of side of things at the time, and therefore I just went on my holiday and enjoyed myself and didn't do anything until I got back. So some of the things I guess that were sort of very active parts of what was trained and taught within our team on our team pages was things like, always adding to my network. I was very actively always adding to my network, adding more people. Instagram was my sort of network of choice. And so I was always very active in adding people. And if they didn't follow me back, maybe removing people. I was always very active on Instagram. That sort of changed over time, but very active. Always sharing the products, being a product of the product. It was relentless, I'm sure, if you was subscribed to me. Always, sharing products that I was using, sharing stuff about the business, about what the business was doing for me, even though it wasn't really. Talking about, how I was going to get my next promotion, speaking it into existence, which, by the way, just was a load of baloney. And, just sort of actively being engaged in the group that I was with, being on team Zooms, always learning, being plugged in, showing up as often as I could. It was very difficult for me because the sort of UK part of our team was so small. It was like me and maybe a couple of other people. Most of the people that I recruited were also in the UK, but very much American focused, American times. It was very difficult for me to stay plugged in. And I think to some extent that maybe helped, because I actually almost felt like a little bit back from some of the things that went on. I always felt like some of the things that were trained, I always used to say to my husband, I don't think that works for a UK audience. That doesn't feel comfortable to me. I'm not sure people in the UK would, we're not the same. We might speak the same language, but we're not the same. And there was a lot of things that I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Things like cold messaging, it was not for me. And I'm very grateful for that now. And there were so many things that, like wording and things, that I was like, no, that doesn't work. I don't think that would work here. So I do feel like I was able to sort of disassociate myself from some of the more problematic parts of it. But and having walked away now, that does make me feel a hell of a lot better, because I feel like there was nothing that I feel terrible about. But I still recruited people into this business model, albeit unknowingly what I was doing, and ultimately involving them into something which could ultimately lead to them not earning money too. So some of the regular things that we were sort of expected to do were things like work on your personal development. Personal development was huge. There was always books going round as to what you should be consuming. So there was a strong focus on personal development, and if you weren't being successful, it was because your mind wasn't right. You didn't believe in it enough. You weren't working hard enough. You needed to get your mind right. You needed to overcome whatever stumbling blocks that you had to stop you being successful. And it's not that simple looking back. Of course it's not that simple. The problem is not necessarily people's mindset. The problem is that it's a business model where 99.6% of people fail. So, there was a lot of that, focusing on your mindset, working, doing these power hours, getting on Zooms, plugging into trainings, listening to top leaders. There was a lot of things like that. And, people would come on and talk about, go live on a team page or put video on the team page talking about XYZ. Could be about something about the business, about mindset, and they'd be like really like about it, almost shouting at you. And I've said this before, all in the name of getting fired up. And, generally it was just people shouting at you. And I've seen that in other multi-level marketing companies as well. It's not specific. So, there was also growing your network. You needed to be actively growing your network all the time to have more of a pool of people that you could reach out to about the business or the products. You needed to be sharing the products, being a product of the product. So ultimately, to be a product of the product, you need to purchase every month. There was a requirement when I joined, I was told, you pay to join, and there is no other, mandatory fees, quotas, requirements and such. And they're not mandatory, but they kind of are, because you need to run these things to be able to run your business. For example, there was a £20 a month website fee to keep your website active. Now, if you don't have your website active, then you cannot enroll people to join under you on your team, and you cannot have people go to your website to purchase your products. So you can't actually run your business without it. It's impossible. I mean, it's not mandatory because it can be turned off, but you can't run your business without it. So you're kind of held over a barrel for it. So there's that. There's also to be commission qualified. So that means any commissions you've earned, you're then entitled to be paid. You have to run an order that has, at the time, was 80 in volume, which sort of equated to about £100. So you would have to spend £100 a month on products to qualify yourself for commission. There was another way to do it. If you enrolled some customers and their volume equated to 150 in volume, then you could commission qualify yourself that way. But that was always sort of deemed as, well, if somebody did a return, then that would stop you being commission qualified. And the best thing to do is to run your 80 bonus volume auto ship. And so it's not a requirement, but it is really if you want to get paid for your work. So you can see why people might not make money, might not turn a profit, because while they might be earning money off of selling things, they have to spend out too. If you think it's around £100 an order, and actually towards the end that was increasing, the product prices had gone up quite a bit. So to achieve 80 in volume in orders, I was spending more than that, probably £120, £130. And if you're not making that back, then that's a loss, I'm afraid. So there are these things that they're not mandatory requirements, but they are requirements really if you want to run your business. And so that and I know that happens in other companies as well, that there is sort of like a minimum order that you need to place every month, whether that's for your own personal stuff or customer stuff in some companies, I guess, because not everybody has this sort of website structure that you order through. So within It Works, customers would go to your website, they would place their order under your link, so it would get attributed to you, and then you would get the commission from that. But the company would deal with all of the processing, the shipping, any returns, all of that sort of stuff. So that was quite appealing. But there are other things that I always felt in It Works. There was quite a focus on the products, but also quite a focus on recruitment too. There was a lot of focus on what the products did, how good they were, and being a product of the product. Like, I would share the products every single day, but I would also share the lifestyle of being a rep every day too. So I always felt like it was easier for me to recruit people to become distributors than it was to sell the products, if I'm honest. But then I know other people who were very successful in selling products and less so in recruiting team members. So maybe that is person dependent. One of the things that I always found really disingenuous within It Works, I think, was the ranking system. And I'd be curious to see how people who have been in other MLM companies, how it works for them. So when you were talking about the business opportunity, there are different ranks within the company, and actually the income disclosure statements of the companies actually show us that most people are not making a profit at all, and it is the under 1% who are actually making any kind of decent money. and that most people are sat at the bottom of the pyramid and not really making anything at all. I mean, like, across multi-level marketing as a whole, the average earnings of a multi-level marketing distributor is £0. What? But they put it right out there. But the manipulation tactics, I feel, are so strong that, you know, you could slap people around the face, myself included. You could slap people around the face with the income disclosure statement and the facts, and they would still be like, well, my company's different. But it's not. The income disclosure statements are out there. If your company doesn't have an income disclosure statement, then that's even more of a red flag. It's even more of a red flag than actually seeing the income disclosure statement. It's even more of a red flag than there being an income disclosure statement. So if you're in a multi-level marketing company and you've got this far, I would probably suggest you haven't. But if you have, I would definitely go and check out your company's income disclosure statement and see the truth. Because, you know, there are many, you know, it works, it's a certain percent. I'm actually going to insert some income disclosure statements so we can just have a look at them, because, you know, it's across the board. It really is across the board that this figure of this less than 1% of people are making money. And when I say making money, I don't mean like actually physically making money. I made money. But actually, after, you know, you've paid for your starter kit, you've paid for all of your products, you've paid for your website, you've paid for any requirements that there are, you pay for, you know, trainings, additional trainings that you might do, or anything you may pay for towards your business is obviously an expense. I actually run a proper business. And so, you know, the profit, the things that, not just the money coming in, but the money that's come in, and when you've taken off all of your outgoings, that's left over. Less than 1% of people are seeing a profit there. What I found problematic is that people are talking about their rank sometimes when they don't have it. So basically, every single month, on the first of the month, everybody's account is set to 0. You start as the first rank, which is a distributor, which is the automatic rank you are when you join. As the month goes on and auto ships run from customers, auto ships run from distributors, retail customers join, more auto ship customers join, maybe you're placing personal orders because maybe distributors are actually the true customers of the company, maybe, in my opinion. So as these things run, your rank increases throughout the month if you have achieved, you know, X amount. So it's very complicated if you don't know the inner workings of multi-level marketing companies. Is very complicated, but basically, as you fulfill the requirements for each rank throughout the month, you would increase up the ranks. Now, with most people being sat at the bottom level, that obviously doesn't happen for them, but for people who have moved higher up, it does. Now, when you hit a rank, so one of the first major ranks, I guess, is Ruby, which is an income of $500 a month. Ish was at the time. I don't think it is now. Once you achieve that rank, it becomes your lifetime rank. So your lifetime rank is the highest rank you have achieved. And so I could always say, like, oh, I'm a Ruby. If somebody said to me, oh, what rank are you at? I'd be like, oh, I'm at Ruby. And they'd be like, oh, okay. Or somebody could be like, oh, I'm a triple diamond, or I'm an ambassador. Now, if you drop that rank because you don't make the requirement for that rank, you can still call yourself an ambassador diamond, or a Ruby, or a diamond. And so it kind of feels a little disingenuous, because you could be talking to someone who's saying, oh yeah, my rank is an ambassador diamond and I earn $25,000 a month, but they could have dropped rank and they could actually be sitting at distributor and only earning £10 that month. So it seems really disingenuous to me that that's a possibility, because a lot of people are not at their lifetime rank still and have dropped rank.
Next, I want to dive into the reasons I decided to leave my MLM.
What I have found out since, what I have uncovered since, and a little bit about why the anti-MLM community is so important for advocacy for those of us who have been in MLMs and to prevent people in joining MLMs in the future. So let's get going. And of course, before I continue, just to reiterate on my copyright disclaimer that everything in this video is my opinion only, based on my own experiences, and obviously does not represent everybody in the company or anyone else in the company, just me alone. And yeah, all me, all my experience, all my thoughts, all my opinions, and nothing more. So why did I leave? What encouraged me to leave? So looking back, there were times where I felt like I was, totally all in. And so I'm not going to do myself the disservice of saying, I always felt like something was off. But to some extent, I had a lot of questions in my mind some of the time. And I always felt that within our team, within our company, those questions were probably answered away, hidden away, explained to some extent, and almost encouraged you to stop thinking of them, I guess. And so there were many times I had a lot of questions like, is this the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Is this right? And sometimes when I was recruiting people, I'll be honest with you, when they're saying, like, how much money can I make? Do people really earn that much money? And I'm like, they do. And I know people, who are making that money, but I haven't seen that kind of money. And there were times where I felt like, is this person going to be successful? Because I don't know that I am. So am I recruiting them to not be successful? And there was sometimes a question in my mind. And I guess that only grew as time went on. So one of the worst things about multi-level marketing is that they draw you in on this idea of time freedom. But actually, once you're in, they kind of require you to work all the time. And while you do have your own free will to an extent, it is expected and it is encouraged. And, if you're not working, then, how can you expect your business to succeed? And it's not working in the small pockets of time during your day. You realise very quickly that it's much more than that, and it's 24/7. It requires actually turning into a hunbot. You are this little robot of a person who talks only about their business and what the opportunity has to offer and what it's doing in your life. You talk only about the products that you're making money on selling. You are just this robot that works for a multi-level marketing company. And now I'm on the other side. When I see people join, I see that too. So much of their life becomes about sharing either the opportunity or the products. And people always say like, I'm going to do multi-level marketing different. But ultimately, if you're not sharing the products or the opportunity, like, you've got to do it. And so you can't do multi-level marketing differently. You can't share it any differently. You can't do anything any differently. It's just the business model. You just can't fight the business model. And so I was pregnant with my daughter, my first child, and I worked almost up until I gave birth. Now, while I was in labour, I didn't work, which is, it might seem like, well, of course you wouldn't work during labour, but actually that's something that women do in multi-level marketing companies. They work through all these significant life events when they should really just take some time off. And when I mean significant life events, I mean all significant life events, like births, deaths, marriages, holidays with their families, important things, birthdays, christenings, all things, just expected to work through them all to an extent. And I just think it's a gross part of multi-level marketing. And so anyway, I worked pretty much up until I had my daughter, and then after I had her, I didn't work. Again, completely not normal in multi-level marketing. But I guess after, I want to say 6 weeks, maybe more, I thought, oh, I'll have a look at the team page, and there was like a Q&A going on with the top leader. She was getting questions from people, and so I thought I'd ask a question. Bear in mind, I hadn't worked for a long time to this point because I'd been off with my daughter, and you know, in a normal job you get maternity, right? So, and here in the UK, maternity leave is like up to a year, so you know, it's pretty normal not to do anything. And so I hadn't anyway, and but I thought I'd ask the question while I was just browsing on Facebook. I thought I'd ask the question, you know, how do mums of new babies actually make it work? Because, you know, you're tired, you're up feeding, you're up, you know, rocking your baby, you're very tired, you want to nap when they nap as much as possible, and you've just got normal life stuff going on. How do you fit the business into that when you're caring for a newborn? And I was told basically that I just needed to pass my daughter to my husband and just work. Like, I just needed to do it and not make excuses. And I was like, oh, seems a bit not sitting right with me, because like, this is my newborn baby that I've waited my entire life to have, and you're telling me that actually she's kind of getting in the way of your business a little bit, and you need to pass her off to your husband. He needs to take care of her, and I need to miss those vital memories and moments with my children so that I can sell some reps and recruit more people into this. And it was from that moment that I was like, And I have a friend who I was in the same company with, and we actually left together, and we are still really good friends. She is one of the people that make me so grateful that I actually did do multi-level marketing, because the friends that I have kept are all people that have seen the light and come through the other side. Everybody else, the like-minded community of people that were like, you know, besties buds, if they're still in it, I've been blocked, deleted, ignored. No, that's it. And that's what happens when you leave something that may be an alleged cult. So from that moment, I felt like, no, that doesn't sit right with me. And I have friends who have very similar sort of light bulb moments. That's their story, not for me to share. And from that moment, I was like, oh my God, what is this? And I started to look into it a little bit more and decided that, you know, this wasn't working for me anymore. And at the time when I left, I was still manipulated by the tactics that they use. I did this post on social media saying, you know, like, I was so grateful for my time in It Works, and but from now I would be, you know, pursuing other things, but I was so grateful for all the opportunities I had with it, and I was, you know, basically leaving with a good heart. But actually I don't feel that way at all anymore, as I have deprogrammed from the manipulation that took place within my time in multi-level marketing, and I've opened my eyes more and more. I've read more, understood more, delved in more to some of the more problematic parts of multi-level marketing. I'm horrified by the whole of it, and while I can say I'm grateful that I have friends who have been through the experience with me, it's a terrible, terrible structure, and how it's not illegal, I just don't know. On the other side of multi-level marketing, there comes a lot of deprogramming, thinking, evaluating. If you've been part of recruiting, you know, there has been some maybe shame attached to that. And I want to say to you now, if you have been in multi-level marketing and you feel any kind of shame to what you might have been a part of, I want you to remember something, and that's that you were recruited, you were lured into something, and you were manipulated to think, speak, act, feel, do things in a certain way. And that is the definition of a cult, in my opinion. If you feel any kind of guilt and shame towards the way you were when you were in a multi-level marketing company, or any shame for the way you acted when you reached out to people, if you cold messaged people, or you feel guilty for recruiting others into something that was ultimately, going to lose more than 99% of people money, just remember that you didn't know that, and that's something that becomes abundantly clear on the other side. And I get the guilt and the shame, but there are amazing ways that you can channel that into helping others hopefully see the light. That's difficult because people who are so deep don't want to hear it. I wouldn't have listened if I'd have heard it. In fact, one of the more problematic things within multi-level marketing is to, cut out that kind of negativity. Invest heavily on your personal development. Cut out that kind of negativity. Positive vibes only, toxic positivity kind of culture. Cut people out potentially that aren't supportive of your business. It's very problematic. But remember that you were manipulated, and by all means, if you feel like it will help, say sorry to the people that that maybe you recruited. I have spoken to people who were leaders above me, and they have felt like they wanted to apologize, and I feel like it's not necessary. But then equally, I have apologized to some of the people that I recruited, and they come back and also say that it's not necessary. So just remember that there are amazing ways that we can channel those feelings into helping others so that they don't fall prey to the same tactics. And I think that where we are now in 2022, I think there is a lot more awareness of these things than there was, say, back in 2015. And I think the anti-MLM community, although constantly tarnished as haters and people who are successful, negative Nancy's and all of that, I think the anti-MLM community does great work at advocacy to alert other people into the pitfalls of these business models. And I hope that it is helping predominantly people not fall prey to them in the first place. And I don't know, to a lesser degree, I hope some people in multi-level marketing will see that these businesses, they're not here to make us money. They're here to make money for the 0.4%, and for most people, they won't be part of that, obviously. The 99.6% of people will suffer for the 0.4%. So if you've been in multi-level marketing, I do see you, and I do understand the feelings, the guilt, the shame, the implications of maybe what you were part of and what you've done. But we can channel that into something so much better, and we can help other people avoid falling prey to these things in the first place. And ultimately, I hope that we can reveal how predatory these systems are. And just because something hasn't been found yet to be a pyramid scheme or an illegal business model doesn't mean that they aren't. It just means that maybe they haven't been caught yet, in my opinion. So
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I am beyond grateful to have you here. Community is so important, so I would love to chat with you over on Instagram, because Instagram is kind of my jam. You can find me over on my account, which is @lifeonplot44, and you can also find me on the.slowliving.collective. I will link all of the links in the info, the show notes and everything, so you can see exactly where you can find me and where. My podcasting friends have always told me that podcasts live and die by their reviews, so if you're able to leave a rating or a review on this one, I would appreciate that so much. And of course, if you're able to share what I do here on your social media platforms, I would be so grateful too. In this episode, I also mentioned my podcast I do with Talia. You are welcome to come over there and join us. We talk about everything, honestly, everything. You can find us at Slow the Heck Down Pod, and you can obviously search us wherever you listen to your podcasts, and our podcast is called Slow the Heck Down. Thank you again for tuning in, and I will be back soon with another episode.